Hello, sweater knitters. Today we're going to talk about the sleeves, and then we'll also talk about I-cord bind off. I am going to be doing the short sleeve option on my sweater, but the beginning part here is the same whether you're doing the short sleeve or the long sleeve option. So I've got my stitches for the sleeve on hold. I've got them on my try-on cords. And so all I need to do to transfer them back to my needle, makes it so easy, is put the end of the try-on cord on my needle and then pull the try-on cord through and replace the try-on cord with the needle. I'm just going to slip those all back on there. It's much easier, I think, than trying to pick them back up off of waste yarn, because with waste yarn the stitches tend to slip down into the rest of the working fabric and it's a little hard to find them. So as you can see, I'm just kind of pulling the try-on cord and then working the stitches onto my needle. Like this, almost done. Now I'm using my ChiaoGoo Shorty set, this blue set here, to work my sleeves. You can use any method you like to work a small circumference, whether that's magic loop or a small needle. Okay, so then I just pop my try-on cord off, and now my sleeve is on my needle, ready to go. Easy peasy. Okay, so now I'm going to take my working yarn, and the directions say to pick up and knit some stitches from the edge. Let me show you, get all these little ends and pieces out of the way, show you what that looks like. So after we put the sleeve stitches on hold, here's some stitches that we cast on to continue for the body of the sweater. This is where we're going to pick up, and we're going to start here at this side, and we're going to pick up half the number of stitches we need and place a marker for the beginning of round, and then pick up the other half of the stitches we need, and that'll be depending on the size that you're knitting. So to pick up and knit, I'm sure you already know how to do this, but here's our eyelet for our raglan increases, and so I'm going to go after that eyelet, and I'm going to pick up right in here. As many of you probably know, picking up stitches is sometimes not an exact science. It's just getting it in there. Okay, so there's one just in that spot, and now you can see that this cast on edge has a little bit of a chain look to it. I don't know if you can see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into those stitches and pick up along there. Sometimes I use my Fix-It tool to pick up stitches. Don't have one with me today, so I'm just going to use the needle. So here I've picked up two, and we want them to be fairly evenly placed, spaced, and placed across the underarm. It's not going to be visible, but we want it to not pucker or be too loose. There's 4, 5, I'm picking up 7. 6, and 7. And then here's where you would place a beginning of round marker. If I had one ready, guess I should get one out. So we're going to place a marker here just to indicate that that's the beginning of the round, and this is the bottom of the underarm area. So put this marker here, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to pick up 7 more along the other side of those cast on stitches. A little awkward sometimes picking up stitches, but just go slow and steady. It'll be fine. It's not hard to do. It's just trying to figure out where to put the needle and maneuvering the yarn to come through there. There's 3. So I don't think I'm going to have enough room to pick up another 7 on this side. 4 more, but let's just see what happens. Now see how this is a little gappy right here? Can you see that? So I'm just going to go into before the gap. Some of that will be tightened up when you weave in ends and whatnot. I'm going to go before the gap and pick one up. And then I'm going to go kind of in the gap, pick one up. And then I'm going to go after the gap, pick one up. Yeah, okay, I'm going to get enough. So I need one more. And I've got this area here. See, here's my eyelets again. So I'm going to get one more in here right before those eyelets start. So there I've picked up. So I've got my 7 stitches picked up here. It'll be a different number, whatever size you're making. Here's my beginning round marker and then the 7 here. So then all you're going to do is you're going to continue. It says to pick them up and then knit to the end of the round. So you're going to knit all the way around to the beginning again. Okay, I'm almost all the way around, just knitting that round after I picked up the stitches on the underarm. And when you get back to your first stitch that you picked up, it's going to be kind of loose because of that tail with the new yarn you attach. Don't worry about it. Just tug on the tail a little bit, tighten it up. And then, like I said, when you weave in the ends, it'll all be fine. So we're going all the way back to the beginning of the round here. And then we'll take a look. All right, I'm going to stop 1 stitch short just because I don't want to lose my marker. All right, so then you can see now this is the underarm of our sweater. So it looks pretty nice going right across. There's the stitches we picked up, and then here's the rest of the sleeve going around. So now, depending on what type of sleeve you're going to do, this is where you might do something different. So I'm going to make the short sleeve version. So, but first I'm going to talk about the puffed sleeve option. If you're going to make the puffed sleeve option, it says you're going to work in stockinette stitch for about 6 inches, or roughly to about the crook of your elbow. And then you're going to add the puff and the increases below that go down to your wrist. If you're going to make the slim sleeve option, you'll work in stockinette stitch for a couple of inches, depending on the size you're making, and then work a decrease round every so often as you move down your arm, because our arm tapers as it gets down to the wrist, so we want to taper the sleeve as well. Some people choose just to do a straight sleeve and not do any decreases. Just depends on your preference for how you like your sleeves to fit. One thing I want to point out is it says in the pattern to work in stockinette stitch. Don't be thrown by that. Stockinette, of course, means knit one side and purl the other, but since you're working in the round, you're just knitting all the way around. I also did not mention double points as a method for small circumference knitting. If you want to use double points for your sleeves, you can do that as well. So since I'm doing the short sleeve option, which is not written in the DK weight pattern, but it is one that I've used on both my other sweaters out of this pattern that I've made. All you do is you pick up those stitches, you knit one round, and then you do the I-cord bind off. Now, sometimes sleeves on sweaters will end with a ribbing, but what makes this sweater unique is it ends with an I-cord bind off, which provides a really nice finish at the end. So now I'm going to show you the I-cord bind off. You will do this at the end of whatever sleeve option you choose to do. So let me knit this last stitch. And actually, I don't need this marker anymore because I'm going to start binding off. So to do an I-cord bind off, what you're going to do, and I'm just following the directions right from the pattern, but it says you're going to use the knitted cast on and cast 4 stitches onto the left-hand needle. So knitted cast on, if you haven't seen it before, is you're knitting, but putting the stitch on the needle. So here I'm going to go into this stitch as if to knit, wrap my yarn, and then rather than pull this stitch off when I'm knitting, I'm going to put that stitch on to the needle. Oh my. Okay, there we go. So there's one. And now I'm going to do that again. I'm going to knit, but then I'm going to pull that big and put it on the needle. There's 2. And here's 3. Well, could I make this look any more awkward? It's really not that awkward. Okay, there's 3. And now we're going to knit one more and put it on. Okay, 4, and put it on. Okay, so I've knit 4 stitches, or added 4 stitches using the knitted cast on. You can see them here. When you do the knitted cast on, there's my 4 stitches, and this last stitch that looks like it belongs to those is really the first stitch that was on the working fabric already. So there's the 4 that I've cast on right there. All right, so then what we're going to do is we're going to knit 3, knit 2 together through the back loop. So let me knit 3. And what we're going to do is we're making an I-cord, but we're attaching it to the end of the sleeve as we go. So I'm going to knit 3, which are the first 3 of the 4 that I cast on. And now I'm going to take that 4th one and I'm going to knit it together with one from the body of the sweater, the sleeve. We're going to knit together through the back loop, just like this. So I'm attaching that onto the sweater. Now I take these 4 stitches, the 3 I knit and then the one that I knit 2 together through the back loop, and I'm going to put them back over onto the left needle. And now I'm just going to continue that all the way around. All right, let me get myself situated here. Okay, so I've slipped those 4 stitches back over onto my left needle, and I'm just going to continue that process. We're going to knit 3, 1, 2, and 3, and now we're going to knit 2 together through the back loop, again taking this last stitch here and attaching it to this one that's on the body of the sweater or the sleeve. Knit through the back loop. And now we're going to move those 4 stitches back over to the left needle again. Now, I-cord bind off, it takes a bit of time because you're working these stitches over and over again. You're knitting the 4 stitches with 1 through the back loop, and then you move them back, and then you re-knit those stitches again. But what's happening is this I-cord right here is starting to form, and it's going to make a really nice edge. Now, something to note, if you haven't done an I-cord before, when I start to knit this first stitch, do you see where my working yarn is? It's over here at the end where I've left it. And so the process of that wrapping around up here and being knit is what helps to form that I-cord, that working yarn being pulled around. Holds the stitches together. It makes like a little tube, almost. Okay, so let's knit 3. 2. And 3, and now we're going to knit 2 together through the back loop right there, attached with that one there, and then we're going to slip those 4 stitches back over to the left needle again. Do it one more time and show you, and then I'll pause and come back when I'm almost done. So now I'm going to knit 3 again. I really feel like an I-cord bind off is worth the time it takes because of the look you get. We're going to do the same bind off on the V-neck of this sweater. We're going to do the same bind off on the bottom of the body of the sweater. I'm knitting together 2 together through the back loop now. And so it provides a really nice finished edge. Okay, and then move those 4 back over. All right, I'll come back in a few minutes and show you how to end the I-cord when we've gone all the way around the sleeve. Okay, so I've finished my I-cord going all the way around. I have just my last 4 stitches here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to graft that together to the other side so it creates a continuous loop around our sleeve in this case. See how nice of an edge that I-cord makes on the edge of the sleeve? I really like this kind of a bind off. All right, so what we're going to do is I've cut my yarn and I'm going to put it on a tapestry needle. You don't need a ton of yarn, but just give yourself enough to work with and then to have an end to weave in. So we're going to use a Kitchener stitch, if you're familiar with that from doing toes of socks. And we're going to bind these 4 stitches to 4 stitches on our beginning of our I-cord over here. If you see, your I-cord is made up of columns of stitches. So here's, look for the V's, right? Here's our first column of V's. Here's our second column of V's. Roll it around, there's our third column of V's. And here's our 4th column of V's. That it was where we attached it to the sleeve. So we're going to be identifying each one of those columns and grafting these 4 stitches with a column of V's on that side. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our first stitch purlwise and take it off our needle. Pull the yarn through. And now we're going to go find the very first stitch on the I-cord, which is right here. And we want to put our needle under both legs of that stitch. And we're going to pull the yarn through. Then we're going to go back to the stitches on our needle. And we're going to go in as if to knit. So we're going to knit off And then we'll go into this one as a to purl and leave it on. Knit off, purl on. If any of that sounds familiar to you, it's from Kitchener Stitching. Don't worry, you can re-watch this as many times as you want to. Okay, so we'll go back over to our columns of stitches over here on the beginning of the I-cord. And here's the, whoops, don't do that. Okay. We're going into the second column now. So here's 4, 3, 2. So we're going to go into the second V right on the other side. Pull it through. Go back over here again. And now we're going to, what do we got? That was looped around. There we go. Okay. So then we're going to go knit off. We're going to go in as if to knit, take it off the needle, and we'll say purl on. We want to try to be careful not to let that fall off. And now we're going to go over to the third column. So here's 4 and 3. We're going to go into that first stitch in the third column. See how I'm going under both legs. And we'll come back over here to our very last stitch on the needle. And we're going to knit off. And then we go through the fourth stitch on the other side, both legs, just like that. So what we end up with is a continuous I-cord that goes on the edge of our sweater. Then what we're going to do is just take this tapestry needle, put the yarn through to the wrong side, inside of the sleeve, and then of course we'll weave that end in as normal. For now I'm just going to weave it through a little bit so it doesn't come out, and then I'm going to leave it here with those other ends that need to be woven in. So here's my finished sleeve. Pull this down so you can see it a little bit better. There's the edge, the I-cord edge going all along. Here's where it looks continuous on the underarm. And of course some of that'll be fixed up, the bumpiness, by when I weave in all these crazy ends in here. But there you have your finished sleeve and the I-cord. Can't wait to see yours, how they look.